Good evening. This is Kathleen Drew, and I'm the chair of the Washington State Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council, or EFSEC, and we are beginning our public informational meeting and land use consistency hearing. These are two back-to-back meetings. Please mute your microphones on your computers and on your phone. I believe that if you do *7 on your phone, that will mute you. Otherwise, we'll get feedback and noise, which will be disruptive during this meeting. Welcome, and thank you for joining us this evening for the public informational meeting and land use consistency hearing for the proposed Badger Mountain Solar Project. The purpose of EFSEC's meeting tonight is to share information about the project, which will be presented by the applicant, and EFSEC's review process, and to hear your public comments. EFSEC statute RCW 80.40.090 requires EFSEC to conduct a public informational meeting within 60 days of receipt of an application for site certification. And that's called an ASC, and that is essentially the document that will be reviewed throughout the process for approval or rejection, ultimately by the governor. The applicant, Avangrid Renewables, submitted their application, or ASC, to EFSEC on October 7th, 2021. During the first hour of this meeting, from 5 to 6 p.m., we will have a presentation by the applicant about the proposed project, introduce the Council for the Environment, or CFE, and introduce our council members, and have a presentation about EFSEC's review process by EFSEC staff. The presentations and information on how to submit written comments are on our website, which is www.efsec.wa.gov. You get to that main page, you will see a title that says Energy Facilities, and in that drop-down screen, you go to the Badger Mountain page. Following the presentations, we will begin oral public comment on the project. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes each. Since we will develop our recommendation with information from our record, we very much want you to send us comments directly. And you can also send written comments to us either by email to EFSEC or in the comment. I'm sorry, I can't. Or on the comment link before midnight tonight, which is on the website. I would like to introduce our Administrative Law Judge, Laura Bradley. She will be presiding over the comment period this evening, as well as the land use consistency hearing, which follows our public informational meeting. So I will now ask Ms. Owens to call the roll for the council and EFSEC staff.
Department of Commerce.
Kate Kelly, present.
Department of Ecology. Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Mike Livingston, present.
Department of Natural Resources.
Lenny Young, present.
Utilities and Transportation Commission.
Stacy Brewster, present.
Assistant Attorney General.
John Thompson, present.
Administrative Law Judge, Laura Bradley.
Present.
For EFSEC Council Staff, Sonia Bumpus. Amy Hofgemeyer.
Present.
Amy Moon, Kyle Overton, Joe Wood,
Joe Wood, present.
Sean Chisholm,
Sean Chisholm, present.
Patty Betts, Stu Henderson,
Stuart Henderson, present.
Andrea Grantham,
Andrea Grantham, present.
and I believe I see Sonia Bumpus is on the line.
Sonia Bumpus is present.
Thank you. Is our court reporter on the line?
Yes, I am. I'm Andrea Ramirez. Thank you.
Thank you. Counsel for the Environment, Bill Sherman.
Megan Salome, I'm the counsel assigned for this project.
Great, thank you. Chair, there is a quorum for the council.
Thank you. We'll now proceed to the presentation of from Avangrid Renewables.
Hi, this is Scott Kringen with Avangrid Renewables. So I assume we provided a presentation. Is that something that we'll share here as well?
Just one moment and I can make you a presenter.
Great. And I'm trying to turn my camera on, but it's not allowing me to do that.
Okay, I'm having trouble finding you in the participant list, and it's not letting me set you. Just one moment, sorry.
Can you try it now, Mr. Kringen? There you are.
Yep, there I am. Do you? I'm getting only meeting organizers and participants can share. So I can't share my screen.
I just sent you as a presenter, so it might let you now.
There we go. Okay, one sec. Yeah, still not letting me present.
Okay, I will open the presentation.
Can we work through that way? And then if you can share it, I can just tell you next slide and work from there.
Yes.
Perfect. Sorry about that.
Okay,
there we go.
Should be up.
Great. All right. Thank you, Chairman Drew and EFSEC Council for the opportunity for this public hearing and also the opportunity to present our project, the Badger Mountain Solar Project. So great. Yep. Start on that slide. Perfect. Great. Great. So my name is Scott Kringen. I'm one of the lead project developers for Avangrid here in the West. I've been with Avangrid Renewables for 12 years now, developing various different solar and wind projects from California, Nevada, and Oregon and Washington as well. So So Avangrid Renewables, we generally work under Project LLC, so you'll see our name on a lot of projects as Aurora Solar. And Aurora Solar is basically a wholly owned subsidiary of Avangrid Renewables. We're headquartered in Portland, Oregon, but since the pandemic and post-pandemic, we do have folks all across the country. So we have our headquarters in Portland, but we do have a fairly large office in Boston as well. Avangrid is one of the leading developers of wind and solar projects here in the U.S. We have roughly about 7,000 megawatts of owned and controlled wind and solar generation here in the U.S. Of these 7,000 megawatts, a big portion of those are here in the Northwest, in Oregon and Washington. And it does include, currently as it stands, the two largest solar projects, one operating, the other one under construction in the states of Washington and Oregon. It's the Lund Hill Solar Project in Klickitat County, Washington, at 150 megawatts, which is currently under construction. And then the Gala Solar Project, which is a 56 megawatt project in Crook County. We've also broken ground on a couple more solar projects in Oregon that will be larger than those 56 megawatts, and one of those is in Wasco County, and the other one is in Crook County again as well. We have also had a lot of success in developing wind projects in the state of Washington, and we've been doing that since about 2004. We've developed the Bighorn 1 and 2 projects, 249 megawatts, and the Juniper Canyon project at 151. And all those projects are in Klickitat County. So Avangrid brings a lot of experience, especially here in the Northwest, in developing, responsibly siting projects in the state of Washington. So kind of the bigger picture for Avangrid is Avangrid Renewables. It's a subsidiary of the Iberdrola Group. And Iberdrola is one of the largest renewable asset base of any company in the world. We have more than 32,000.
Mr. Kringen, your audio was leaving, so if you wanted to not have your picture up, that might make it easy.
Yeah, let's do this. I tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take the video off because sometimes that's been bringing the sound down, and I'm gonna change out a headset here if I can.
Okay, please.
Okay, is that better?
Much, thank you.
There we go. Okay. Sometimes the video just really messes with my quality. So just touch on the base on Avangrid Renewables as a developer. We do all phases of development, meaning that we do a lot of greenfield developments. So we're doing all of the prospecting for projects. We're doing, basically the land issues with the projects, permitting. We're executing agreements with communities and individual landowners. We also oversee all our project constructions, and we manage daily operations of these projects for the life of them, which most projects are 30 years plus. So just to say that we do everything basically starting from beginning to end. So we're not just a developer selling projects. When we develop projects, we're owning these projects for the life of those projects. That's our intention on everything that we do. All right, next slide. This is just is a map kind of showing the perspective of where we're located, where we've had projects here in the US. And like I said before, it's ranged from everything up in the Northeast to Southern California, and then especially up here in the Pacific Northwest. And next slide, please. So our Badger Mountain solar energy project is located in Douglas County, approximately about 3.5 miles east of the city of East Wenatchee. We are located on mostly private land. We have 21 private owned parcels under lease, which makes up about 5 different landowners. And we are we are working on 2 state-owned parcels as well with the Department of Natural Resources. The project lease boundary, so everything we have under the lease is roughly 4,399 acres. The actual solar array, the micrositing area that we're studying is about 2,274 acres. The gen-tie, so it's basically the line from the project substation to the point of interconnection, is roughly about 116 acres, with the total project footprint being about 1,338 acres. All those acres are under long-term land leases and transmission easements with the private land. That does not include the state-owned parcels at this point, but we are working with DNR too, and they're helping us facilitate negotiating a lease on those properties as well. So the land that we have under lease and that makes up the project leased boundary is generally dry land, agricultural land, rangeland, or undeveloped lands. There's local roads are involved and also existing utility infrastructure, and there's a number of large transmission lines that run through or adjacent to our property, whether they're BPA or Douglas County PUD or Puget Sound Energy in the area. We do have 2 utility interconnection agreements in place. One is with Puget Sound Energy for a 230 kV line, and the other one is with the Bonneville Power Administration, another 230 kV line. And we're also working on a 3rd with Bonneville Power. But those are what we're proposing to interconnect. Project size overall, as we mentioned before, we're proposing a 200 megawatt AC project. And the technology we'll be using will be single axle tracking ground mounted solar PV. And basically what that means is these are PV panels that sit on an axis that can track with the sun, basically. And most of the time, and these panels will also be bifacial, so they'll be lined with cells on both sides of the project, or so both sides of the panels. All right, next slide, please. Great. This is kind of an overview of where the project is located, kind of giving you a reference to the community of East Wenatchee and Wenatchee itself. We are, if you can tell from this, there is some topography. We are roughly up above East Wenatchee by about 3.5 miles. But if you can look on there, we're you know, there's definitely a drop that goes down into the community, and we are up above on that, up on the ridge, basically. And the line coming out of the project area shows you where our generation intertie is running, and where the squares are along there, those are the proposed point of interconnection. Next slide, please. Next slide. I don't know. There we go. Thank you. We started working on the Badger Mountain Solar Project. We basically initiated development in 2017, where we started taking a look at and talking to various different landowners in the area and taking a look at the existing transmission that runs through the area. We started looking into this particular area because it is an ideal location for solar. And what I mean by ideal location for solar, initially when you're looking at early stage developments, it's proximity to existing electric transmission lines. So we have both Puget Sound Energy and BPA lines, which are all within about 3 to 4 miles of the project. There's an abundant solar resource here, or exposure here, especially for the state of Washington. It has compatible topography, and essentially just to kind of, what I mean by that is that it's flat land. Solar really needs to have kind of contiguous flat land. It doesn't do well with a lot of topography, and so We definitely have a lot of this here up on the ridge. We also were looking for basically adequate available non-irrigated agricultural land and undeveloped land. So we're trying to stay out of things like shrub steppe habitat and various different habitats. And it's ideal to go and look at for especially non-irrigated agricultural land. And the ag land that we're currently leasing is designated as not commercially significant. And the project has the support of all the participating landowners on the private land sections. We're also working to avoid all talus slopes in the area, and the potential impact to shrub steppe habitat has been minimized with by trying to avoid that in our layouts. I mean, less than 3% of the project area actually sits in shrub steppe habitat. We have been as we started the permitting process, we've been continuing our consultation with area tribes. And we're also very conscious of visual impacts, which we believe are going to be largely screened from the general population of East Wenatchee and Wenatchee, just because of being located up on a higher elevation. We were first looking further down, closer to East Wenatchee, closer to the transmission lines, and we decided it would be a better place to develop if we were up further away, up on the ridge. Even though that puts us a little bit further away from our transmission that we're targeting. From taking a look at this land, also there's no wetlands, intermittent or perennial streams that occur in the project area. And like I said before, the vast majority of the project area is on non-irrigated, currently actively agricultural land. And that land that we're affecting, the dry land, agricultural land that we're affecting, is less than 1% of the dryland wheat in Douglas County presently. And these are pictures of the project area, a couple of pictures that we're looking to here on the slides. Next, please. Yep, thank you. Great. As I mentioned before, as we've gone through the permitting process, both with Douglas County and now with EFSEC, there's been a great deal of consultation going on. This is kind of the list of various different agencies which consultations are ongoing with: U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, WFW, obviously the Washington EFSEC, Department of Ecology, Department of Natural Resources, also the Department of Archaeological and Historic Preservation, also tribal consultation with the Colville tribes, and also the Yakima as well. Also the Department of Transportation and the Douglas County Planning Department has also been under consultation as well. Next slide, please. So as part of our applications, both which we started with Douglas County and also here with Washington EFSEC, I just kind of go through a list of the surveys and studies that we've completed so far. Geotechnical field studies have been completed. We've done our wetland studies in the spring of 2021. All the delineations are completed with no wetland projects in the areas. FEMA floodplains as well, completely outside of any FEMA designated flood hazard areas with high flood risk. And then also water quality storm runoff as well. And we started those in the spring of 2020 and was working through this through 2021. Next slide, please. Also working on surveys and studies for habitat plants and animals. Rare plant surveys in 2021, along with wildlife and habitat surveys. In 2019, raptor nest surveys were completed. And in 2020, raptor nest monitoring report was completed, and also the eagle nest monitoring report as well. Noise studies were completed this year as well. It's an acoustic assessment report, and we'll use that information in helping designing the project. And then also light glare and aesthetics. So there's visual impacts assessments are completed, a solar glare report, and also an FAA notice criteria tool was also activated as well. Next slide, please. And then the archaeological and historic resources as well. So cultural resource survey reports completed in fall of 2021. And then we're going to be doing traditional use studies in collaboration with the Colville Confederated Tribes as well this spring in 2022. All right, next slide, please. So I'll pause there, and I suppose it will. I don't know if you want to take questions now, or if we want to. I suppose we can do that during the public comment period. But that's the basics of the project. I have a few slides here, which basically takes a look at what commercial solar development looks like. So I think a lot of people have questions of what these projects look like because we don't have a lot in Washington right now. So I always feel it's kind of nice to show some pictures, and we can kind of go through these pretty quickly.
Please
on the slide.
go ahead with this. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, great. So basically the market right now is there's two types of solar projects. There's fixed tilt system and single axis tracking. The majority of projects right now are going with the single axis tracking, and fixed tilt tends to be on more terrain where we're on pretty flat land, and so we're utilizing the single axis tracking equipment. Next slide, please. And here's just another picture kind of showing how panels are rode up like this, working on the tracking. There's collection boxes and inverter boxes that you'll find throughout the projects, and taking a look at the racking system that's going on. Next slide, please. And this is kind of an overview of a project. I believe this one's here in Oregon. You can kind of see how panels are lined out. You're looking at a temporary construction area where the cars are, because this project that you're looking at is under construction. But this is kind of a view of an existing project that's being built here in Oregon. Next slide, please. And also part of our project is that we are proposing battery energy storage systems, and I just wanted to show an example of that as well. We're not 100% for sure if we'll be building this with our project, but we are asking to permit it, and it's part of our interconnection as well. But essentially, batteries are kind of housed in these containers with inverters in between them, and on concrete or gravel bases, basically. All right, next slide. I think that might be it. Yep.
Thank you.
Next.
I will ask the council members if there are questions, and then as we go through comments, if we have enough time to answer questions, we'll do that. I don't know how many people we have signed up, so I just want to be aware of that. But in terms of council members, are there any questions?
Chair Drew, this is Mike Livingston.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I thank you for the presentation. I have a comment and a question. So, and I'm sure you're aware of this, Douglas County is pretty unique in its habitat for sage grouse, and the sage grouse in particular in the state of Washington is an imperiled species. We have recently, our Fish and Wildlife Commission uplisted them to endangered from state, threatened. And one of the unique things about them in Douglas County is they use a mosaic of habitat, from remnant shrub steppe to conservation reserve program habitat, as well as dryland wheat. And I appreciate the fact that the siting that you've selected here in these parcels are virtually on the edge of probably what's core habitat. But one of the concerns I have is that the large fires that happened in September of 2020 burned up a significant amount of the habitat that sage grouse were using, and Badger Mountain in general was one of the remaining places that didn't burn. So I just wanted to kind of first make my fellow council members aware of this, and then secondly ask the question of, on the wildlife surveys, and I've looked through the report and I see that there's some evidence of sage grouse being sighted a little bit off of the project site, but are there plans for additional surveys and also some more communications with our experts? Because for Department of Fish and Wildlife, we're going to be very careful on how we weigh the information, just making sure that we're not losing some of the last remaining sage grouse habitat in the county as well as in the state of Washington. Douglas County's been a stronghold for us. There's only 2 populations left in the state. There's just under 700 estimated to remain here in Washington, and Douglas County's got most of them left. Over probably 80 or 90% of them. I couldn't give you the exact numbers, but close to that. So I'm just curious, what are plans for additional surveys in consultation with some of our experts? We do have a research scientist that's been studying them in Douglas County for many years and can provide some really good information. Thank you.
I could feel that. This is Mike DeRuyter. I'm the Senior Permitting Manager for Avangrid on this project. We have appreciate the concern about sage grouse. We did complete the habitat assessment. We met with Mike Ritter, and we are going to continue to do so to discuss that, and especially as we work through the habitat mitigation plan. We do not have plans at this time for further surveys, but it's something we can discuss as we work with Mike Ritter on that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I realized I didn't have my camera and I meant to do that, so. But I do thank you for that response.
Thank you. Other questions from council members?
This is Stacy Brewster. To follow up on Council Member Livingston's question, the map showing the layout of the grid shows the publicly owned property on the north end, which looks like it's a majority of some sage shrub steppe habitat. What can you talk about that section and what is the plan for that?
Right. So we're currently in negotiations or in consultation with DNR on the ability to lease that land up there. As we lease a whole parcel, it's not necessarily that we're going to affect that entire parcel. So the area that we're interested within those 2 parcels are essentially the land that is currently being leased for dryland wheat agricultural. So our intention, I'm not for sure exactly how the layout would work on there, but our intention is that we would be affecting the what's being currently used for agriculture.
Thank you.
Additional questions from council members? I have a question myself about the interconnections. You mentioned that you are looking at, well, I saw from the application 2 potential connections, one with PSE and one with BPA, and then you're pursuing a second BPA. Would you be looking at using all of those interconnections or a single one?
Most likely, that's a good question. Most likely it would just be one. So with, because there are 2 lines that are fairly in close proximity to the project, it allows us to market the energy to more customers, more potential customers. And the second BPA interconnect right at this point is just in a study stage. So we don't know what the results are. We don't know what the costs are, but it is a different interconnection on Bonneville, and it does open us up to other customer opportunities with Bonneville more than the one we currently have. So I think we generally we like to get our studies back and our costs back before we actually pursue an interconnection like that. So without knowing those yet, it's kind of hard. We've got those costs and studies on the first BPA interconnect, and the same with the PSC. So we have a good knowledge of what it's going to take to interconnect and how much it's going to cost, and the approval to do it.
And the new interconnect, is that within the footprint of the project as you have it before us?
No, not at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Further questions from council members?
Chair Drew, this is Kate Kelly.
Go ahead.
Just to kind of follow up on Councilmember Livingston's question, I'm thinking about wildfire and just wondering what precautions get taken or what the potential impacts are on your facility from wildfire and how you prepare for that or anticipate it.
And so basically a part of, I think you generally, a condition of a lot of these permits is that we engage with the local fire district or fire department in the area, and we consult with them on a fire protection plan for the facility. And that's in general. So I'm not, maybe Paul or Mike, is there specifics on that, or is that something that generally we're going to, as we do on a lot of our projects, we'll consult with the local fire district? Because it's going to be different from where we build a project in California. If we build a project in Washington or New York, they're going to have different requirements. So we don't necessarily have standard out of the box stuff, but we always do consult with local fire districts and come up with a mutual kind of fire protection plan for the facility. But solar projects in general,
yeah, Scott,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add that's exactly what I would have suggested. And one of the things that a couple of things they might be asking for in that plan would be fire breaks or roads to accommodate emergency vehicles.
Yeah.
Well,
there's a lot of things. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would you be concerned about fire damaging your equipment as well? Or in the reverse side of it, fire your equipment starting a fire? Right.
So I'll take the first one, and there, of course, always, no matter where we are, that's a concern. And we try to develop these projects so that we can protect them from fire in the areas. I also think that the consultation that we do with local fire districts will help alleviate, a lot of that risk, fire risk up there. And if there were to be a issue on fire, that we've done all the design so that the local fire authority can access and do the job as needed to protect the area. Generally, solar plants are there's very few moving parts. We're going to be required to keep, the weeds under control and a weed management plan and creating access for fire department. So, the way we design this project definitely has some influence from the local fire department and fire protection in mind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Additional questions? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on now to the next item on our agenda, which is the introduction of our Council for the Environment, Megan Salome. Would you like to introduce yourself and share with the public what your role is?
Sure. I think I'm unable to turn my video on. Sorry.
Okay, try it now.
There we go. Okay. Hi, my name is Megan Salome. I'm an Assistant Attorney General with the Environmental Protection Division, and I've been appointed as counsel for the environment in this matter, which basically means that I'll be advocating in the process for environmental concerns. And my information is on EFSEC's website and the appointment letter. If anyone would like to chat with me, my phone number is 206-389-2437. Some folks have already reached out, and I look forward to talking with you all.
Thank you. Now we will have a presentation about the EFSEC siting process and who on our team is doing the presentation.
That would be me.
Mr. Chisholm, go ahead.
All right. Welcome everybody, and thank you for taking your time and listening to this presentation and all presentations that we've had today, this evening. My name is Sean Chisholm. I am a energy site specialist for Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council, or also known as EFSEC. This presentation will introduce EFSEC, the EFSEC process to people that are new to EFSEC. Next slide. A little bit of history about the agency. EFSEC was created in 1970 for the siting of thermal power plants. The intent was to create a one-stop permitting agency for large energy facilities. EFSEC is comprised of state and local government members who review each application before making a recommendation to the governor. This decision preempts all other state and local governments. Next slide. You can see here that EFSEC is comprised of members of several different state level agencies. The chairperson is appointed by the governor, and there are standing members from 5 other agencies appointed by those agencies to sit on the council. The current council is made up of Chairwoman Kathleen Drew, Robert Dangle from Department of Ecology, Mike Livingston from Department of Fish and Wildlife, Kate Kelly from Department of Commerce, Lenny Young from Department of Natural Resources, and Stacy Brewster from the Utility and Transportation Commission. There are additional agencies that may elect a council member during the review of an application. These agencies are the Department of Agriculture, Department of Transportation, Department of Health, and the Washington Military Department. For Badger Mountain project, these positions are still pending. Local governments also have an option to appoint a council member for the review of a project in their area. When the project is located near a port, at or near a port, the Port Authority may also appoint a member. However, this position is a non-voting member. Next slide. As mentioned previously, EFSEC was created to oversee the siting of thermal power plants. Facilities falling under EFSEC's jurisdictions include any nuclear facility whose primary purpose is to produce and sell electricity. We also oversee non-hydro and non-nuclear thermal facilities with capacities of 350 megawatts or greater. There is no threshold for alternative energy sources such as wind, solar, and more, but they can choose to opt in, as well as transmission lines over 115 kilovolts or kV. The threshold for pipelines, refineries, and storage facilities that fall under EFSEC's jurisdiction are found on the Revised Code of Washington, or RCW 80.50.060. Next slide. Here is a map of the facilities under EFSEC's jurisdiction. You can see marked in red are the 5 operational facilities, including 2 natural gas facilities, 1 nuclear facility, and 2 wind facilities. The light blue marks indicate 2 wind facilities that have been approved but have yet started construction. The dark blue marks indicate 1 solar facility currently under construction. The clear circle is 1 nuclear facility under decommission. There is currently 3 facilities under review marked in green, including Badger Mountain facility. Next slide. Here's a flow chart showing the process an applicant will go through when they submit an application to EFSEC. There are 3 concurrent processes during the application review. The land use consistency and adjudicative hearing process, the State Environmental Policy Act or SEPA process, and the permitting process for relevant environmental permits. All of these processes happen at the same time and all ultimately feed into the council's recommendation made to the governor. Next slide. Where an adjudication proceeding is required, a record is compiled and parties of the adjudication are identified. In the process of preparing the adjudication, sometimes there are stipulations and settlements that come out between the parties. The council looks at all information in the adjudication record and then deliberate. Finally, the council draws up their findings and conclusions with the information provided throughout these proceedings and incorporate those findings in their recommendation to the governor. Next slide. With regards to the SEPA process, when a decision to prepare an environmental impact statement or EIS is made, public comments are taken on the scope of the EIS. After public commenting for scoping, the EIS official determines the scope of the EIS. The draft EIS is prepared and issued with a minimum of 30-day public comment period, after which the final EIS is prepared and released. When an applicant requests expedited process, a review is done to establish whether or not the project meets the criteria of a determination of non-significance, or DNS, or a mitigated determination of non-significance, or MDNS. With the SEPA official if the SEPA official determines that the project meets criteria for a DNS or an MDNS, the EIS is not required. In process, the determination is the determination is present for the public where there is a minimum of 15-day public comment period on the MDNS. Next slide. To be considered for expedited processing, the applicant must make their request in writing. The project must meet 2 criteria. First, it must be determined that the constituent used local land use policies. Second is the SEPA determination must be either a DNS or an MDNS. In this process, no adjudication is required. The council prepares a recommendation for the governor in an expedited time frame under this policy. Next slide. EFSEC is the issuing agency for any relevant environmental permit a facility may require. These may include air quality and water quality permits. The permits are identified and included in the final order for the council's recommendation to the governor. Next slide. At the conclusion of the council's review of an application, the recommendation is made to the governor to either approve or reject the application. It starts a 60-day window, which the governor will then approve, reject, or remand the application back to the council for reconsideration. Any application that is rejected by the governor is final decision for that application. Next slide. If an application is approved by the governor, EFSEC then has oversight of the environmental compliance for the life of the facility. EFSEC has standing contracts with applicable state agencies that assist in the monitoring and enforcement of conditions, either in the site certification agreement, relevant permits, or stipulations of the EIS or MDNS. EFSEC enforcement authority extends to the insurance issuance of any penalty as they may apply. Next slide. This is a wrap up of my presentation this evening. Before I end, I'd like to remind everyone how they may submit a comment for this proposal. If you'd like to sign up to speak this evening, you can you may call the EFSEC main line at 360-664-1345. Again, that's 360-664-1345. Or email comments to our main inbox at efsec@utc.wa.gov. And that's efsec@utc.wa.gov. You may also send a written comment by mail to 621 Woodland Square Loop, P.O. Box 43172, Olympia, Washington 98504-3172. Again, that's 621 Woodland Square Loop, P.O. Box 43172, Olympia, Washington 98504-3172. Comments may also be submitted to our online comment database at https://comments.efsec.wa.gov, and that's comments is COMMENTS.efsec.wa.gov. There are two databases available for the duration of the meeting. One is for the general comments and the other is for the comments specifically for land use. Both will be open until midnight tonight. Thank you for your time and have a good evening.
Thank you very much for the presentation. We will now move into the portion of our informational meeting where we will be taking oral public comments, and our Administrative Law Judge Bradley will be facilitating the comment taking, and I'll start and hand it over to her, but ask Ms. Owens, how many people do we have signed up?
I believe actually Andrea Grantham should have the sign-up sheet open. Andrea?
Yes. So far we have 16 people signed up for the evening.
Okay, and if, Andrea, if you're going to do the calling of the names, perhaps if you would start with the first three, and we'll put our 3-minute clock up, and I will hand it over to Judge Bradley. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I just want to briefly introduce myself. My name is Laura Bradley. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings. I've been an administrative judge for the last 22 years. And so my role here is to monitor the conversation, make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak, and we do need to limit comments so everyone does have the opportunity. So when your time is up, I will be interrupting you, and if we have time at the end, we may go back to folks. Go ahead.
Thank you. So the first three will be Mickey Fleming, Susan K. Ronning, and Kevin Simmons.
Okay, Mickey Fleming.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I've turned on my microphone and my camera. I don't know if you can see it or not, but here I am. My name is Mickey Fleming. I'm a lands program manager with the Chelan Douglas Land Trust in Wenatchee, Washington. As you just heard, our name is Chelan Douglas. That means our territory is Chelan and Douglas counties. And the Land Trust has been working in this community since 1985 to protect and steward critical habitats in Chelan and Douglas counties. We've been heavily involved in salmon recovery, in protection of shrub steppe, providing compatible access when possible. And in the last few years, a definite emphasis of ours has been in protecting the shrub steppe in Douglas County, and very specifically in Badger Mountain. I don't know if it's possible for you to let me share my screen, but if so, I can show a map of that work, but I'll keep talking while you figure out if you can do that. And specifically in Badger Mountain, we have been provided a lot of help from the Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and the Sage Grouse Initiative to direct us to those lands and those landowners which were most important for the protection of sage grouse habitat. As was mentioned before, this by WDFW on council, the sage grouse, this is the last stand of sage grouse in the state of Washington, Douglas County is, and they use a mosaic of habitat, to use his words, which includes the shrub steppe as well as the dryland wheat, such as being discussed in this project. If I were able to share my screen, I'd show you the map of our work on Douglas County so far. In Badger Mountain, we have protected over 10,000 acres of contiguous habitat with farmers and ranchers who are involved in both raising of crops and grazing, which are compatible with the sage grouse habitat. They have their leks, even their breeding areas in the wheat areas. I see my clock is really short. So this is being supported with federal money, state money, and state agencies. And this land that is subject to the proposal is critical for their survival. We submit that a very thorough study needs to be done, and we believe that ultimately you will conclude that this is not the proper place for solar development. I'm happy to answer any questions. And the clock is going 3, 2, 1, so you'd cut me off anyway.
Yeah, so I wanted to let you know that in the chat, it does say that you can email your map to the council as part of your comments.
Okay, and I've submitted a written comment as well, but I'll see if I can put that into the chat. Thank you.
Okay. Susan Ronning?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dr. Susan Kane Ronning, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak this evening. I am speaking as a member of the Washington Chapter Sierra Club Wildlife Committee, and I live in homes both in Bellingham and Chelan. With over 100,000 members in the state of Washington, the Washington chapter of the Sierra Club urges EFSEC to require an EIS on the Badger Mountain Solar Energy Project. I was born and raised in East Wenatchee and attended school with many of the ranchers on Badger Mountain. I've hiked, sledded, and learned to ski amongst the Badger Mountain wheat fields. My dad used to take our truck and drive up. We would be towed behind in a sled, and he'd drive up the hills, and then we'd sled back down. I drive an electric car, and I have solar panels on my roof. I support renewable energy and expansion of the solar energy infrastructure. However, I can't support it at the expense of an endangered species. The sage grouse is already grappling with droughts and wildfires. Sage grouse habitat is just 8% of its historic range in Washington, and its numbers are currently fluctuating. Badger Mountain is the last stronghold for the sage grouse. Placement of a solar energy project in its range and leks will present an unmitigable loss of habitat for this remaining sage grouse population in Washington state. Prior attempts to mitigate the sage grouse have not been successful and are not a feasible alternative to allowing the solar energy project and harming the risk for the sage grouse. Wildlife monitoring is lacking in the current proposal, and disruption to the mule deer migration patterns are also unknown. So lastly, the Washington Sierra Club Wildlife Committee urges you to conduct an EIS on this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I apologize, I did not write down the name of the third person on the list.
It is Kevin Simmons.
Okay, Kevin Simmons. Are you there, Mr. Simmons? Perhaps we could get the next three names and come back to Mr. Simmons.
Sure. The next three are Trina Baynard, Jason Hills, and Arlen or Cy Hinderer.
Okay, Trina Baynard.
Hi, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, hello. My name is Dr. Trina Bayard. I'm Director of Bird Conservation for Audubon, Washington, which is the state office of the National Audubon Society. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of our office as well as the North Central Audubon Society, whose chapter territory includes Badger Mountain. Audubon's climate science shows that 2/3 of North American birds are at serious risk of extinction if we can't limit warming associated with climate change. We support 100% clean energy and net zero emissions to help our birds, but our birds also need habitat and protections to adapt to climate change and ongoing habitat loss. We and our 50,000 members in 25 chapters across the state care deeply about the greater sage grouse and other birds of the shrub steppe. The greater sage grouse is an Audubon priority species across the West, and here in Washington, as you've heard, the status of sage grouse in the shrub steppe ecosystem is dire. More than 80% of this landscape has been lost, and grouse experts tell us that the population in Douglas County represents the last viable population in Washington. Our office has reviewed the publicly available data on greater sage grouse in the Badger Mountain Solar Project area, including the applicant's wildlife and habitat survey report. We find there are serious and concerning data gaps. So for example, the applicant's field surveys were for just 6 days in early May 2021. However, grouse may use the project area in different ways across the seasons. And so surveys in other seasons should be required. In addition, the Department of Fish and Wildlife telemetry data from nearby breeding grounds is for males only and does not include movement data for females or young and their nesting or post-breeding dispersal. In addition, sage grouse observations by private landowners and individuals may not be documented in the official data repositories, creating a gap in the official record for sage grouse occurrence and habitat use in the project area and vicinity. As you've heard, use of grassland and dryland wheat habitat within the project vicinity by sage grouse has been reported, particularly in areas where there are fingers of sage steppe vegetation interspersed. These grassland type habitats could be more important for the Washington population of this species than has been appreciated. So in addition to surveys across seasons to detect whether or not the species is present, an analysis of sage grouse habitat use in grasslands and agricultural areas adjacent to the nearby sage steppe is needed for this project and other areas going forward. For these reasons, we find there's not enough data at this time to find a level of significance to determine environmental review. We recommend the council postpone the decision on significance until the applicant, using methodologies approved and in coordination with Department of Fish and Wildlife, fills the data gaps on year-round occurrence at the site and habitat usage of shrub steppe and adjacent agricultural areas. In postponing this decision, the council can use the best available science to determine significance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Mr. Simmons able to comment now? All right. And again, I apologize. The names went by too quickly for me. The next person on the list, please.
I apologize. I'll go slower next time. The next one is Jason Hills.
All right, Jason, go ahead, please.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk tonight. My name is Jason Hills. I'm a landowner on Badger Mountain. It's really good to hear people talking about the sage grouse and the wildlife in the area. The wildlife is very robust and on Badger Mountain. And when I hear the EIS as it stands now, it just seems like there's nothing on Badger Mountain, and that's just not true. And I'm hearing that as far as fire protection goes, it's not going to be an issue for a project this size. And if it is an issue, we're just going to rely on the county to take care of it. And I think that's a big burden on a county that already is trying to deal with the growing population inside the city limits and inside the urban growth boundaries. I don't really hear how water is going to be addressed that's going to be utilized in the project. Are the wells going to be drilled? And if so, how much water is going to be extracted? And will that affect local landowners in the area that depend on the water for the drinking water? I don't hear any of these things addressed, and that's what's concerning for me as a landowner is how is this going to affect the people that are already there? With that, I can yield back my minute and 40 seconds to somebody if they want to talk longer than the 3 minutes, if that's allowed.
All right, thank you. I believe the next name on the list is Cy Hinderer. All right, not hearing anything. We'll try to come back. Is Kevin Simmons able to comment now? All right. I'm sorry, was someone wanting to speak? The next three names, please.
The next three names are Robert Abbott, Kane Segura, and Eric Thrift.
This is Robert Abbott. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Abbott.
Thank you, Chair and the Council for taking up this, for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Robert Abbott. I'm the Vice President and Regional Manager for the Labor's International Union of North America, with strong Central Washington ties here in the community since 1978, and a current resident of East Wenatchee, Washington. LIUNA is a construction union in the energy sector, which employs thousands of our members across the state in building gas distribution infrastructure, performing maintenance on refineries, power plants, hydros, and also building renewable energy projects here throughout the state in eastern Washington. We have done so by working with credible partners such as Avangrid. I'm here today in support of the Badger Mountain Solar Project. Avangrid has a proven record of meeting all the EFSEC requirements and environmental needs, along with providing family wage jobs to the community with health and welfare and pension benefits, along with training. They have also been employing apprentices on the construction projects and to train the next generation of construction workers. These same projects will provide a continued opportunity for workers here in the community and the surrounding area. We still need additional power and generation to meet the growing needs and demands of the state's economy. Projects like this provide a clean energy for the state and in our community. Avangrid has proven that commitment in the current projects that they currently have going and past projects they have in the state of Washington. I urge the council to support this project and as they complete the EFSEC process and as we continue the transition to renewable energies and providing good paying family wage jobs to our communities in which the people live. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Abbott. Kane Segura.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Right. Thank you to the entire commission for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you all this evening. My name is Kane Segura, and I'm the business manager of Labor's Local 348 in Richland, Washington. I represent over 1,000 hardworking men and women in the central Washington area, including Douglas County. I'm here this evening on behalf of the membership, their families, and the potential jobs LIUNA will have here in the community. You have heard from my counterpart the dedication that Avangrid has given to the skilled trades, who are often left behind by other developers who are more focused with the local cost, lowest skill and lowest pay to get the job done. We are looking forward to working with Avangrid on this project, not only to ensure the work is done on time, the work is done safely and efficiently, and the project is built with good union jobs. We know that the efforts taken here will help move Washington forward and will put Douglas County on the map as a leader in solar clean energy goals. For those who may not know, our members are trained and skilled in not only heavy highway construction and building construction, but also in all renewable energy construction as well. We have worked on numerous projects throughout central Washington where we have provided skilled, trained, and reliable workers to do the job from start to finish, and we look forward to the opportunity to continue building these projects for the community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Eric Thrift.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
All right there. My name is Eric Thrift. I am a resident of East Wenatchee. I'm also the assistant business manager for Labor's Local 348. I represent construction workers from this community. I'm here this evening to advocate in support of this project. We've seen the work Avangrid has done on other projects throughout the Northwest. They value the community that they create projects in, and they value good skilled workers to get the job done. This project would not only bring nearly 400 jobs to the area, but it would bring a new opportunity for Douglas County. With this size of projects, we would be part of the efforts to push this state forward. With Washington State's set target to transition to the state's electrical supply to 100% carbon neutral by 2030 and 100% carbon free by 2045, we can't just do this in one part of the state. We have to be a part of this for our future and for generations to come. 50 years from now, when this project term ends, we will be able to see the results from this project, see the leadership that took the steps to move this project forward. I thank you all for your time and the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to go back just briefly. Is Kevin Sims online and available to comment?
I am here. Can you hear me this time?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Hello, my name is Kevin Simmons. My wife and I have lived at 931 Road U, Southwest Badger Mountain for 27 years. Our home is where our great-grandparents lived, my grandparents lived, and where my dad and aunt grew up. So you can see it has a lot of sentimental value and history to us. The proposed solar farm is roughly 300 yards from our house. Like a lot of homesteads built in the late 1800s, they were built in the lower parts of the landscape to take advantage of wind-driven windmills to power water pumps in hand-dug wells. We still use that well today for our primary and only water source, as do some neighbors. One big concern of mine is a spring runoff that runs past these hand-dug wells every spring when the snow melts. The proposed solar farm will be built on both sides of the draw where their runoff water drains. I assume the solar panels will have to be cleaned throughout the year to keep them efficient. My concern is what kind of chemicals will be used and how will it be kept from washing into the soil. Another concern is vegetation control and what chemicals will be sprayed directly on the ground and its potential health hazard, as they will also end up in the same drainage path. This same drainage path not just affects us, but 2 other homes with hand-dug wells. Another issue is the effect on wildlife, especially on the endangered sage grouse. It has been proven that the attempts to relocate and breed in captivity does not work. Sage grouse, so to distribute these sage grouse, it would mean certain death and they would ultimately disappear. The gentleman from Avangrid mentioned acoustics. I'm not familiar with this, but living so close to the project, I don't know what kind of health hazards that would present. When I work the fields north of our house, which is roughly 500 yards away, I see up to 6 sage grouse almost every time. There's been sightings in this area for as long as I can remember. In the same area, there's a piece of DNR ground, which was mentioned by the gentleman from Avangrid, that is included in the solar farm proposal. It is probably 100 yards or less away. I understand the need to reduce and eventually eliminate greenhouse gas emissions, but with all the open, unusable land in our state, why here? Governor Inslee has made comment on his goal for green power and wanting it in 2023. I hope this isn't the reason why Avangrid picked the state and the spot to build, thinking it would be a guaranteed permit process. I would much rather look out my window and see a green field or even a field full of weeds than an 8-foot chain link fence and solar panels. Another thing was mentioned about jobs. These jobs are temporary. These people will come in. Chances are it's an out-of-state contractor, which I've seen in where I retired from. They'll come in, they'll do the project, they go away. I would assume this is similar to a solar server farm like people have been installing. Lots of people to build it. When they go away, very few jobs. I was a union person. I'm for the union,
Kevin Simmons.
Don't let that
I can recognize him.
disillusion. Go ahead. So folks, if you're not speaking, could you please mute your phone so that speakers don't get interrupted? So it does look like your time has run out, Mr. Simmons. Thank you.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Let's try Arlen Sy Hinderer again. All right, next 3 names, please.
The next 3 names are Rudy Zavala, Tim McVeigh, and Aubrey Newton.
Okay, Rudy Zavala, please.
Yes, my name is Rudy Zavala, and I've been a member of Local 348 since 1978, and I've been in the other trades as far as like insulators, and I've also worked in Las Vegas where they did solar panel like this. It does create a lot of jobs, and for the members, also good living wages. Good living wages, and I support this project, because it would bring a lot to the community here in Douglas County. And like I say, I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Tim McVeigh.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
All right, good evening. My name is Tim McVeigh. I'm a proud member of the Local 348. I'm a resident of East Wenatchee, and I have been a member for the 348 for 5 years now. Being a member of the 348 has provided me with opportunity to not only build my community that I live in, but build my future as well. I am here this evening because LIUNA members value good energy jobs because they offer family support, career, and strength in our community. I am in favor of this project because of the long-term benefits that it provide our community and a good union wage. It will also provide other members of our local that we deserve jobs, projects like this with a strong partner like Avangard. I urge the commission to support this project, and in doing so, you are supporting this community and the workers who have built it. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Aubrey Newton.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And thank you, Chair Drew and the entire commission for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. As mentioned, my name is Aubrey Newton. I work with the Labor's International Union of North America in our Northwest region. I am also from this community and grew up in Chelan County, where my family lineage can be seen all over the valley for nearly 5 generations. As I mentioned, in LIUNA's Northwest region, our union members build and maintain, as you've heard, gas pipelines, construct wind and solar farms, as well as build and maintain coal, gas, hydropower, nuclear plants. In Washington, specifically, the Labors have members working throughout 6 different locals, representing over 15,000 members. These members are trained, skilled, and qualified to work and ready to work on wind and solar projects like this. Our region has a robust recruiting system that reaches statewide and focuses on good paying jobs for the communities where our members live. LIUNA works with our employers as well to make sure that workers on the job are skilled, they're trained, reliable, and get the job done ahead of schedule and go home safely at the end of the day. For reference, outside of the licensed crafts on a solar projects that would be needed for specific electrical hookups, essentially, LIUNA is already trained and ready to handle over 60% of the entire project. We perform on utility scale solar projects that include scopes from start to finish. So from the environmental side, building the fences, installing the storm drain or installing the conduit, grade checking, flagging, placing and cutting concrete, unloading and material handling, many, many more things, including job site cleanup and the civil work. Our solar work hours have obviously grown substantially over the last 5 years, which this has accounted for several million hours for utility scale projects like this. We believe in an all of the above energy policy that relies on a mix of fuels to create good jobs and ensure that our communities are abundant, affordable, with energy now and in the future. Our members deserve to work on projects like this, and our members deserve to work for contractors and developers that value unions, good paying jobs, and building communities in all sectors. With that being said, I am here this evening in support of this project for the reasons that I've listed above, and for the continued partnership that Avangrid has brought to the Northwest region. With that, I thank you for your time.
All right, Thank you. Before I take the next three names, is Arlen Sy Hinderer available to comment now? All right, the next three names, please.
The next three names are Lee Baldwin, David Lynn, and Keith Watson.
All right, Lee Baldwin. Is Lee Baldwin ready to comment? We'll come back. David Lynn.
Hi, good evening. This is my name is David Lynn, and I'm representing Washington Wildlife First. And we acknowledge the risks that climate change poses to our environment, our wildlife, and to ourselves. Therefore, we are generally supportive of the use of renewable energy sources such as solar to replace the sources of energy powered by fossil fuels, which emit carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, a major cause of climate change. And we also appreciate the value of good paying jobs that could be created. Having said that, though, we are concerned with the effects of any new or expanded development on our wildlife and wild spaces. In this specific case, we have a concern that this proposed solar energy development may have a negative impact on the greater sage grouse, which Washington State lists as endangered. Both the project's construction activities, noise, dirt, pollution in the air, and its operations could be problematic for this endangered bird. The Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife writes that the population size of the greater sage grouse in Washington is low, and this species requires a large landscape of sagebrush steppe, much of which has been degraded, fragmented, or lost. The primary threat is the combined impact of all these factors, and this proposed development may exacerbate those risks and further impact this endangered population. The department further noted that the current range of sage grouse is only about 8% of its historic range, and it exists in just two isolated areas, the largest and most important of which is this location in Douglas County. The statewide population was estimated at 775 sage grouse in the spring of 2020, with an increase of less than 100 from the previous year, solely as a result of the increase in Douglas County of 100 birds. The other smaller population declined in absolute numbers. Therefore, protecting the Douglas County population is critically important to the species. Subsequent to those counts, the habitat of all two populations were affected by wildfires, and while it appears that most of the grouse have survived the 2020 fires in the following winter, the impact of the fires on their nesting habitat is expected to result in continued declines. And we have seen that once a habitat is lost, it is very difficult to reestablish proper conditions to support these birds. Therefore, we, like some of the other speakers before us, support an environmental impact study to fully determine the effect that this proposed solar energy project would have on the greater sage grouse and other endangered species like the Fergus hawk that call this place home. Since WDFW indicates the endangered greater sage grouse has a vulnerability to climate change as moderate to high, it is a delicate balance that we must achieve. Thank you for your time tonight.
All right, thank you. Keith Watson.
Hello. Yeah, Keith Watson, and I'm speaking for Conservation Northwest. And first of all, we'd like to say we really appreciate the concept of solar and renewable energy, and really appreciated the company for saying that they were looking for a site that didn't have much to impact. And we would just like to point out that there's hundreds of thousands of acres of cheatgrass in this state that's quite available for solar panels, but there is nothing like Badger Mountain in this state with the diversity of habitats and generations of ranchers and farmers living as they have for years and years, as their parents and grandparents had lived, and taking care of the land and living in harmony. This is one of the few places where an endangered species is living directly next to cows, living directly next to dryland wheat, and really appreciates the amount of agency involvement that has been dedicated to the Badger Mountain region for decades. And it actually should be held up to the whole world as a success story of people continuing their traditional agricultural activities while letting the wildlife cohabitate on their property. And right, there's just tiny bits of sagebrush here and there, but that is enough to sustain this population, along with the wheat and the quite a variety of habitats available due to the rocky nature of the region. And so right, we were absolutely for jobs and for solar panels, but really appreciate the fact that there are considerably less ecologically significant land throughout eastern Washington. So it's pretty interesting that this was chosen as a site that didn't have anything there, basically. An ideal site to pave over and put an 8-foot fence around, which just seems inconceivable as a known wildlife habitat corridor from north to south throughout the whole state. The fact that they just said, oh, if there's a fire, the county will come put it out, no big deal. Well, we're experiencing 100,000 acre fires routinely around here, and no one is available to come put it out because the region is folks are a little bit overwhelmed when the fires are coming. So the thought that we'll just come put it out was kind of a unbelievable answer. The fact that 6 days of looking for an endangered species was enough to say, oh, we didn't find it, and there's definitely a chance that this project alone removes this species from the state of Washington. So the fact that they sent a few people out there to casually look for them for a few days and didn't find any, and that's enough to progress on this project seems inconceivable. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Lee Baldwin?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just have a couple of questions. Number one, is there a potential for the cost of electricity for people in East Wenatchee, for example, to go up as a result of this? Question number two, is the project going to consume a lot of water that could be a concern for people in the area? And let's see, there's one other. Okay, are there any known negative effects to the health of people that are living near the project? If it were to happen, are there any health concerns there? So those are my questions. Thank you.
All right. So are you posing those questions as things that the council needs to consider?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Next three names, please.
We have two more names left. The last two are Margie Van Cleve and Matthew Hepner.
Okay, Marquis Van Cleve.
Hello, my name is Margie Van Cleve. I live in Selah, Washington, and I'm the conservation chairperson for the Sierra Club in Washington State. The Sierra Club is a national organization with a mission to protect the planet, to practice and promote the responsible use of the Earth's ecosystems and resources, to educate and enlist humanity to protect and restore the quality of the natural and human environment, and to use all lawful means necessary to carry out these objectives. The Sierra Club has over 100,000 members and supporters in Washington State and over 3.8 million nationally. Sierra Club has a long history of supporting renewable energy. In 2006, the Sierra Club worked very hard to pass Initiative 937 in Washington State. This initiative required utilities to obtain 15% of their electricity from renewable energies, excluding hydro, by 2020. In 2019, the Sierra Club supported and worked hard to pass the Clean Energy Transformation Act, which commits Washington State to 100% clean energy by 2045. Nationally, the Sierra Club continues work to pass national legislation for a fossil fuel-free electrical grid. That said, the Sierra Club also believes that clean energy must be developed such that it does not destroy the habitat of our endangered species. According to the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, there are less than 700 endangered greater sage grouse in Washington State. The range is down to 8% of their historic range, and they occur in 2 relatively isolated areas in Washington State. Unfortunately, one of the remaining sage grouse refuges may intersect with the proposed Badger Mountain Solar Project. The Sierra Club supports a full independent EIS for the proposed Badger Mountain Solar Project to determine the effects of this proposed project on one of the last strongholds of the greater sage grouse in Washington. Once those effects are known, it must be determined what mitigation may be required up to and including modifying or potentially moving this project such that it does not interfere with the greater sage grouse. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Matthew Hepner.
Hi, thank you. My name is Matthew Hepner. I'm City Councilman for East Wenatchee, position 7. And for my day job, I am the Executive Director of the Certified Electrical Workers of Washington, representing over 11,000 IBEW electrical workers statewide. So just want to start by saying we are in full support of this project. Do have some concerns, but for the most part, we're absolutely in support of this. What this will mean to the community as far as tax revenue coming into the county, into the city, and to the workers it will mean a lot, especially since we lost Alcoa. We can use all these kind of industrial projects that we can get, as long as we're safe keeping our environment at the same time. You know, some of the only other concerns we really have is, will Avangrid build this in accordance with the CETA tax exemptions and labor standards? And if so, which tier would they be using? So those are our questions going to Avangrid and to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Arlen Hinderer. All right, I believe we've completed the list. Has anyone else expressed an interest in speaking this evening? I see a raised hand. I'm not sure who it belongs to, though.
Yes, this is Bill
Mr.
Arthur.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I would be interested in speak and testifying if it's possible.
Yes, go ahead, please.
My name is Bill Arthur. I live in Shoreline, Washington, just north of Seattle. But I do a lot of hiking in central Washington, particularly in the Sage Steppe area, and I have a lot of interest in wildlife and protecting endangered species. I'm also an enthusiastic supporter of developing clean energy, solar and wind. Climate change is real. We need to be advancing as quickly as we can for decarbonizing the economy. But climate change also has serious impacts on our wildlife species, on our ecosystems. I do have concerns that the project as it's proposed, that there's not enough information to really understand what the scope and scale of the impacts could be to the greater sage grouse in the area. As other people have noted, we're down to only about 8% of the original sage steppe habitat. One of the last remaining viable populations of sage grouse in Washington State is located, near the area. So when you're down to that few number of the population of the birds and that small a range of habitat that they need, even small impacts can have or even small changes can have a big impact on the population and the needed habitat. So I would encourage and support a full environmental impact statement so that we really understand what the potential impacts are to the sage grouse population, the variety of habitats that they need, the potential interconnectivity that's needed, and then whether that calls for potential modifications to the project or potential, relocation. I'm neither for it or against it. I just want to make sure that when we cite these important projects, that we're doing it the right way. And I also think that if we don't do it the right way, we'll end up having bigger problems citing these kinds of projects down the road. So let's get the good ones in place and build them as fast as we can. And let's take due diligence to make sure that we're citing them in the right locations and not having the kind of impacts that I don't believe most of us want to have. So with that, I'll close it, but do believe a full EIS is warranted.
Thank you. And Wanda wanted to speak. Wanda, would you like to speak now? If you're trying to speak, you're muted.
Hi, this is Kevin Simmons again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'd like to just make a couple follow-up comments. If I can. Okay. I hear a lot of people, the union workers and stuff, talking about the jobs it would bring. I was a union member for 32 years, and I agree 100% with what they're saying. But the way I see it is, yeah, there's going to be lots of jobs, and they're good paying jobs, but they're temporary. Like I said, it's like the server farm. Once it's built, all those people go away. A lot of them are from not around here. Some of them will be. So yes, there is good paying jobs, but it's temporary. Then they go away. I don't know how many people it takes to maintain these projects after they're up and running. I would think probably very few, because there's no moving parts other than the solar panels, moving with the sun. So there's a lot of emphasis on jobs, but let's not overlook, yeah, we got those jobs at the cost of what? So that's all I've got to say. But
thank you very much. And I do
thank
think
you
that,
again.
yes, I don't think we're trying to start a discussion here, but to take everybody's input. So I appreciate that, but let's just stay with your input. If you'd like to write more, please send an email to EFSEC.
I will. Thank you again.
Thank you. And Wanda, are you able to speak now? All right, I believe that we have covered all of the public comments with a couple of folks who did not respond when they were called. So
again, if for some reason you could not provide comments, this is Chair Drew, please provide them to EFSEC in writing, and we would have to, and we will gladly look at those. Sorry. I do want to say that we will be moving to the land use consistency hearing, and at this point in time, it's 6:44. So we will adjourn this public informational meeting, and we will come back at 7:00 p.m. for our land use consistency hearing. Thank you all.